When a stranger comes knocking in the dead of night, do you open the door or keep it shut? Winter storms in the northern mountains were no joke. The wind howled through the trees, sending snow whipping against the windows of Alex's remote cabin. He had come here to write, to escape the chaos of city life and find inspiration in the solitude. It was perfect until that night. The snowstorm had been raging since dusk, and by midnight, Alex had given up trying to focus on his work. He put another log on the fire and settled into the worn armchair by the hearth, a mug of tea warming his hands. The glow of the flames was comforting, a barrier against the icy darkness outside. Just as he was starting to doze off, there was a loud knock at the door. Alex froze. Who would be out here in weather like this? The cabin was miles from the nearest town, and the storm made travel nearly impossible. Another knock came, louder this time. He set his mug down and approached the door cautiously. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice steady despite the unease creeping over him. "Please," a man's voice replied, muffled by the wind. "I'm lost. Let me in. It's freezing out here." Alex hesitated. He glanced through the peephole, but could see only darkness and swirling snow. Something about the man's voice sounded off, but he couldn't place why. "Are you alone?" Alex asked. A pause. "Yes. Please. I'm freezing." His gut told him to keep the door shut, but he couldn't just leave someone to freeze to death. After a moment's deliberation, Alex unlocked the door and opened it a crack. A man stood there, shivering violently, his face pale and windburned. His coat was torn, and his eyes darted nervously around the cabin's interior. "Thank you," the man said, stepping inside before Alex could fully open the door. The stranger collapsed into the armchair by the fire, rubbing his hands together. Alex shut the door, locking it again, and watched the man warily. Something about him didn't feel right. "What are you doing out here?" Alex asked. "Got caught in the storm," the man replied, not meeting Alex's eyes. "My car broke down. Thought I'd freeze to death out there." Alex nodded, though his instincts were screaming that the man's story didn't add up. "There's a spare blanket in the bedroom. I'll grab it for you." As Alex turned to leave, he caught a glimpse of the man's reflection in the window. The stranger wasn't looking at the fire. He was watching Alex, his expression dark and calculating. Alex's nerves were on edge as he retrieved the blanket. He returned to the living room to find the man still sitting by the fire, but his demeanor had changed. His shivering had stopped, and his gaze was fixed on Alex with unsettling intensity. "Thanks," the man said, taking the blanket without breaking eye contact. "You live here alone?" Alex's grip on the blanket tightened. "Yeah, just me." The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Must get pretty lonely out here." Alex forced a chuckle. "It's peaceful." The man's smile widened. "You're lucky. Most people don't know what it's like to be truly alone." A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, and Alex felt the temperature in the room drop. He glanced toward the door, his unease growing. Something about this man, the way he spoke, the way he moved, felt wrong, like he didn't belong. "Do you need to use the phone?" Alex asked, hoping to end the interaction. The man's expression shifted, his smile fading. "No," he said flatly. "I'll stay here tonight." Alex's heart pounded. "I'm sorry, but I can't." "You can," the man interrupted, his tone sharp. "It's not like you have a choice." Before Alex could respond, the power went out. The fire's glow was the only light in the cabin, casting flickering shadows across the walls. The man stood up slowly, his movements deliberate. "You shouldn't have opened the door," the man said, his voice now low and menacing. Alex backed away, his mind racing. "I think you should leave," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. The man laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "Oh, I'm not going anywhere." As he stepped closer, Alex grabbed the fire poker from the hearth. "Stay back," he warned, his voice trembling. The man stopped, his head tilting to the side as if considering Alex's threat. Then, without warning, he lunged. Alex swung the poker, the metal connecting with a sickening thud. The man stumbled but didn't go down. His movements were unnatural, almost inhuman. Alex ran for the bedroom, slamming the door behind him. He pressed his back against it, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Outside, the storm howled, and he could hear the man's heavy footsteps approaching. "You can't hide," the man taunted, his voice now a guttural growl. "You let me in." Suddenly, the footsteps stopped. The silence was deafening, and Alex strained to hear any sign of movement. Then the door burst open, and the man stood there, his eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. The storm passed by morning, but the cabin was empty. Alex's truck was still parked outside, untouched. Neighbors found the door ajar, the interior covered in claw marks and ashes scattered near the hearth. Of Alex, there was no sign. Some said he got lost in the storm, while others whispered darker theories. One thing was certain, no one stayed in that cabin again. Locals said it was cursed, haunted by the man Alex had let in. What would you have done if someone knocked on your door in the middle of a storm? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more chilling tales. Stay safe, and remember, not every knock deserves an answer.